Welcome back. This is going to be a big video. We've got to upgrade Aria Automation, Aria Operations for networks and import it from a legacy environment, which is the Aria Lifecycle Manager, into VCF Operations and Fleet Management. Plus, we're also going to look at upgrading VCF Automation or Aria Automation into VCF Automation. There's a bunch of prerequisites and some API commands that need to be run to get that over the line and upgraded safely. I've got one of my colleagues and friends, Sander, who's going to be doing that for you and doing that automation piece for you. And we're going to cut into it at about halfway through the video. So stick around and have a look.
We'll go to components this time and, we'll go to binary management. We'll double check that we've got the upgrade binaries. So we've got ops, AON, essentially what it was called, automation and identity broker. Now what we want to do is upgrade a component. Now the option we want to pick here is upgrade or import from legacy fleet management. Hit next. Now you put the FQDN of the old Aria Suite Lifecycle Manager and the username and passwords. I'll do that and we'll come back. If you were the one to have deployed VCF in the previous environment or the one that you're upgrading, the username should look pretty familiar. The VCF admin at local was the default account created for Aria Suite Lifecycle. And then whatever password you assign to it, and make sure the FQDN is right, or if you're using IP address, IP address. Click next, and select the component. So we'll check that. That's the AON platform node that I have deployed or had deployed. Review the component. You can read through that stuff if you want. I'm just going to click on I understand and then pray for the best. We'll see whether let's see if this goes through successfully. It didn't go through successfully the first time around. And if we have a look at the error messages, it's looking for some legacy stuff that I've actually cleaned up. So this is actually my mistake for not cleaning up the legacy environment first. I'll go through. So it's looking for where AON sits. It used to sit on this vCenter in this region, but I've actually moved it to region 1. So if I jump back into here, we go to Lifecycle Operations. We go to Environments. Click on this, we go to networks, and I want to trigger an inventory sync once that option comes up. There we go, trigger inventory sync. Let's see what happens here. Alright, that inventory sync is done. If we jump back into environments, I'm hoping that's now given us an updated location of where this is. How do we do that now? Yep, there we go. If we go into topology, click on platform, and it's now in the right data center. I'm hoping this is enough to retry and get through this roadblock or error. Apparently not. It still thinks it's in the wrong data center. We've gotten past that error, and all I did in the background was restart the task, so effectively going to components, add, and Aria Operations for networks or operations for networks. Went through the process, and this time around it just looks like it synced with LCM again and noticed that it was in the right location, and it didn't keep that cached location of the second region. So now it's in the product import stage, and I'll leave it there and we'll come back once it's done. And there we go. That import was complete. So now if we go to components, there's your operations for networks. So if we go to manage, we can see that was there before. Now we should be able to do an upgrade. No, not there. Now that we can see it's been imported, we can see the version and the target version. And the way I got that target version was by clicking on plan upgrade, pick all the versions, and then create plan. It'll tell you what's already in compliance and then what's got a pending upgrade. So I'll click on upgrade there now. I've just done the inventory sync in the background, so I'm going to skip that, hit proceed. I'm looking at the component version. That's correct. Take a snapshot. You don't have to retain the snapshot if you don't want to. I'll hit next. Run the pre-check. See how that goes. It's failed on a disk space check. So it's saying current space is 5 gig. but it needs to have 12 gig available. So I need to fix that, and I'll do that by clearing up some data, and we'll come back. This is the KB article I followed to clear up some disk space. Effectively, it was the same issue. It was all about just cleaning up old log bundles, old upgrade bundles. That did work, and I freed up enough space, so it wants 12 gig, and I've got a 13 gig back. So I'm going to run another pre-check. We'll see what happens. I'm rerunning that pre-check now after following that KB article. Let's see what happens. All pre-checks are good. I'm going to hit next and let that upgrade kick off. Alright. I'm not going to sit here and watch that. We'll come back once it's done. We can see here that the upgrade completed successfully. It took 2 hours and 11 minutes, which is pretty good. It's a relatively big appliance. What I should have really done was shown you under infrastructure operations and network operations what the view was before and after. Some of this was here. So for example, all of this was here because it's integrated with NSX, for example, and the SDDC. But all of this information wasn't there. So the network alerts and the flows, all this sort of stuff was not populated. That's the benefit you have from integrating and upgrading your network operations and all the other Aria suite into VCF Operations to get a holistic view, a single pane for everything in your environment. Jump back into components, add component, automation, import from legacy fleet. Now, what I should have mentioned in the previous video, which was the upgrade of AON or Aria Operations for Networks, which is now VCF Network Operations. Import assumes you didn't have something like automation plumbed into Aria Lifecycle Manager. And the benefit you have between the two is, or the one thing that I saw the difference was, when importing from legacy fleet management, it brings across the passwords that were synced with and the certificate that was synced with the appliance and the environment that you had created in LCM, as opposed to just doing an import where you then have to also configure all the passwords and all that as part of the import. So I'm going to import from legacy fleet management, and you'll see what I mean. Hit next on that. Hopefully the password is good. There we go. It's picked up my automation appliance. We'll go next. Skip all reading all that. You should definitely read it if you're a customer or doing this yourself. I'm going to hit submit on that. Now this is only just the import. Notice how it didn't ask me for any details around the appliance. It literally just plumbed into LCM and is going to pull anything off of that environment or link to the environment from there and put it into here. And then that also, if you logged into LCM after the fact, you'll notice that that environment no longer exists in LCM. Import's done. We'll jump back into components now. You can see here, it's version 8.18.1. Same thing as last time. If you click on plan upgrade, you pick your component, select the version, hit create plan. Now it's creating the baseline, putting everything or wanting to put everything on 9. Now you've got the upgrade option. Hit upgrade. Yep, I'll hit proceed. Probably need to do an inventory sync, let that finish. It's also giving us a warning here that we should definitely read. Upgrade introduces architectural changes that could affect existing configurations, particularly cloud accounts and integrations. To ensure smooth and successful upgrade, it's essential to review the pre-check requirements and remediation steps outlined in this KB article. So if we have a look here, let's have a look. Shared infrastructure, multi-tenancy, I'm not running any of that yet. No VCD, no CCI, no Kubernetes integration in my environment yet. But if you have any of these, you should definitely have a look here and see how to remediate. I should be okay, but definitely pay attention to this if you are doing an upgrade and you've got any of these integrations. I'll hit proceed on that, and away it goes. Now, not yet, sorry. Let's continue on. Let's have a look and see what's required. Just a couple of resource checks. DNS, NTP, all good. The default gateway is good. By all means, change anything if you see anything not accurate, but it should be pulling all the accurate information from LCM because it was already deployed and working. All right, let's see. So this is saying VCF Automation migration auto-generated certificate. Essentially, it's pulled it from LCM, I imagine. We'll see what happens, and same thing for the password. All right, all good. Internal load balancer, let's pull that from there. All of this already exists. It's going to deploy a new VCFA management and some IPs and prefixes that should pay attention to. The primary VIP of the front door, or essentially the web interface of the node, and then the internal cluster because it's running pods underneath. If you need any additional VIPs, hit that up, but I'm not going to do that in this case. Cluster node pool. So here, the cluster node IP pool is the internal range. For me, I always make sure it's not an overlapping range. If it's a /24, it's a /24, but just make sure it doesn't already exist in your network. It could cause issues. I'm not saying it will, but I always just keep them separate. All right, there we go. Should be able to proceed. Yep, nothing else is mandatory. Hit next. We'll run the pre-check on that. We'll see how that goes. All right, we hit some errors. We've got a couple of greens, lots of greens, and then we had 4 failed. Now let's see what they are. Okay, so I wrongly assumed that I was good in terms of cloud accounts, so I'll go back in and fix that. Password validity check, we'll probably have to reset that password to meet. Password's not valid, must contain 15 characters. Yep, okay. So we'll have to fix the admin password. Password validity check, again, VMware system user password is not valid, so we'll have to just fix up the passwords. There's new password complexity criteria. And it wants something about the CIDR range. So IP are not valid, range is not a valid range. Issue is CIDR range expands to more than 16 IPs. Okay, so it just wants 16 IPs by the sounds of it. So we'll go back and fix some of that. First things first, I'm going to fix the automation appliance. The message that we got was any cloud account of V or T or NSX V or T that has manager mode. Obviously, because manager mode or manager API is being deprecated, it's no longer supported, we need to remove that cloud account. Now, the issue I'm finding, at least in my environment, is it's part of my SDDC manager or VCF cloud account, and there's no way to separate it. So I'm going to have to delete the cloud account by the looks of it, but it is also attached to some projects. Now, in my case, I don't really care too much about the projects, so I'm going to delete the projects, or at least unassociated if it's possible, and then delete this cloud account. But in your environment, you probably have to take note of what's where and how it's all integrated and how much impact it's going to cause you. I can't give you that information now because I just don't have access to your environment nor the knowledge of your environment. That's all up to you, and make sure you document that stuff properly. I'll jump into account, design, and actually that's not the right spot. I believe it was infrastructure, projects, discard that. I'll open infra stuff. I believe it's under integrations, no, summary. Here it is. Let me remove that from there and I'll save it. That's cool. And then if I go back to projects, it was under VCF demos as well, provisioning. We'll remove it from there. Save. Cool. Hopefully that's now good enough. And now there's also some IP net mask allocation. So it's the range. I went back and added a range as opposed to just the CIDR, and it seems to not like that for some reason. Let's have a look why. Let me see if I can just give it a lock CIDR like that. It's also internal anyway, so I've given it the full CIDR. I think last time my mistake when I was doing the CIDR allocation, I put it down as a gateway or a subnet as opposed to the full CIDR. So let's see if this works. I'll rerun that pre-check. We'll see if it goes. It failed again, but for the same reason. I realized I didn't actually properly remove the cloud account. What I did was try to remove it from the project, didn't read the error message saying it's still utilized by some compute resource, so I need to go in and clean that up now. Then we'll remove the cloud account and the project, and then we should be good for that first error. I believe this is what it had in mind about the compute resources. We'll see if I can remove them from here. The first area here, there's two ways I can think of this. Properly or the scorched earth approach. I was initially going to just blow away projects and whatnot, but it's not really relevant and useful for people that have integrations and projects and actual automation catalog items. So let's do it the proper way.
All right, if you've been following along, you've seen VCF Operations for Networks or Aria Operations for Networks be upgraded. We've done some prerequisites and troubleshooting of VCF automation upgrades, but next we've got to do some API commands, and I thought no one better than Sandra and my team to take care of that. So keep watching and he'll take you through in the next 15 minutes or so how to get that upgrade passing or that validation passing.
You might be trying to upgrade Aria Automation 8.18.1 to VCF Automation 9, and you might be getting this error message, this precheck fail message that you can see on the screen here. And this KB article addresses how we can resolve this issue. So if we go into the article and scroll down a little bit, you can see under the resolution section, there's some steps to verify the endpoint state. And basically what we're going to do is run 2 API calls to check a specific property for our cloud account and for our NSX endpoint as well. So the first thing that it says is to basically log into automation, and we need to get the cloud account or cloud account ID. So I'm going to log into automation, which I've already done, and click on assembler. And once that loads, I'm going to go into the infrastructure section and look at my cloud accounts. So if we click on infrastructure and cloud accounts down the bottom, we can see here region1.shank.com. Ignore the errors for now. What we need to pull out is the ID, and the ID can be found in the URL. And the URL is up the top here, has our ID. So we basically want everything after that 2F. So in your account, you'll see 2F, just copy the characters after that. So once we have that, what do we then need to do? So we then need to run this API call, which is provided in this article, and we need to provide our cloud account ID, and we need to verify a property if it's actually set or not, the use.policy.api. So I'm going to flip into my Postman, and I'm going to run a couple of API calls to allow me to run the call that's listed in that article. So the first call I'm going to do is this URL here. It's a post call. I'm going to get my access token from automation. So you can see I'm providing my username, my password, and domain. So I'm going to send that, and I get a response back if everything works correctly. So this is my refresh token. Now I have a script which stores that refresh token as a variable, which I can use for subsequent API calls. So if I look in my environment variables in Postman, you can see it's been stored in there. The next thing I need to do is get my bearer token. So again, this is the post call that I'm making. So you can see the URL up where my mouse is. And I'm basically feeding in the API token, which was stored as a variable earlier. And when I send that in, that should return my bearer token, which I can use for subsequent API calls. And again, I have a script which will store that in here as a variable, which I can use for my API calls. So now I've got everything set up. Let's actually run this API call. So if we look at the KB again, we can see the URL here. So I obviously already have this set up. So let's go have a look. So you can see this is the URL here. And this is you can see the characters at the end. That's the cloud ID that I pulled out earlier from Automation UI. So I can just send that and run this get call. And you'll see it returns a whole bunch of information. And the article specifically states to look at the endpoint properties, and it's asking us to check to see if the use.policy.api is set. Now, if we look at the section here, the endpoint properties, you'll notice that I do actually have it set, and that's because I set it earlier. But in my when I ran this before I fixed it, this was not actually in the return. So chances are when you run this command, you will not see this use.policy.api at all in this section. And that's part of the reason why the upgrade is failing. All right, so they ask you to do a couple of things. So you'll verify in number 2 that that value is not set. The next thing that they want you to do here is to copy the custom property from the NSX payload. So if we go back to our API call that we ran, you can see here under custom properties, you've got NSX here, and this is the value for NSX. So we need to copy that. We need to copy the entire piece. So we copy that and we'll use it for the second API call. Now for that second API call, you can see here it provides the URL that you're supposed to use. And the first thing we want to verify is that the endpoint should be NSXT. So again, we're going to check the postman. So I'm going to run this call. And you can see here in the URL, I have that value for NSX that I pulled out earlier. So resources endpoints in this number, or these characters. See, the first thing is the endpoint type is NSXT, so we are okay. So if we go back to the article, we should have a response as NSXT. And then it's asking us to check the endpoint properties and verify that the usePolicy.api is actually set. And if we look at endpoint properties, you'll see the usePolicy API is set. So in my example, obviously I've already fixed this in my environment or our environment. When I first ran this, the first API call I made for the cloud account properties did not have this set under the endpoint properties, but I did have it set under the NSX properties itself. And this is where the issue is. So the two need to be matching up in order for that upgrade to work. So what's the resolution then? So the fix is provided. It's you basically need to go into the database. The article provides a couple of scripts you can download. So you download both these scripts. First, download these two scripts. It's the first step. So the first script is basically a simulation, and the second script is the actual update. So all of these steps will first get you to run the simulate VCF account policy mode. And then if everything works correctly, then you can then run the update script, which is provided. So I've downloaded that and put that into my automation instance already, but I'll show you here. So if we SSH into Shank's automation instance, you can see here I have put those two files in there already. The next step is to obviously SSH into the appliance itself, which we've already done. And we want to run this command here. And I'm just going to copy this command and we'll just paste it in. And what that's going to do is it's going to get our pods that are running Postgres. So in Shank's environment, we only have one node running automation. We only have one pod. In a cluster type environment, you will probably have more pods running Postgres, but I only have one, which you can see there, Postgres-0. So once we have verified how many pods we have, the next step is to basically copy the file into those pods. So I'm going to copy this command. And remember, the first time we're doing this, we're just running the simulate script. So you can see here, and it basically copies it into that pod. Next thing we want to do is we want to make the script executable. So this first command is basically gives us an interactive session to that Postgres pod. So again, I'm just going to copy it, being lazy, and paste it in. And now I've got an interactive command. I'm able to interact with that particular pod, the Postgres pod. So I'm inside there. I can run the next set of commands. So I'll just change this to, I'll just copy it. So we can basically make that script executable. And we exit after. Now we're back into the automation appliance. So now that we've done that, the next thing we want to do is to open up an interactive session to the Postgres database itself. So you'll get some errors that you're being recorded. Yes, I want to continue. Obviously, take your appropriate backups and snaps. The article talks about that. So now I'm in the database. Now the next command that they said to run is the bang ls. Now I ran this in Shank's environment, and I didn't actually get anything, but the script is actually there, and we can actually run it. Now, obviously, if I run the script, it's not going to do anything because I've already made the changes. But I'll show you what it sort of looks like. Now I do have a screenshot of what it looks like if you haven't made the changes, so you'll be aware of what it looks like. So here you can see here, this is not the simulate script, this is the actual update script. You'll notice that it found a mismatch. So it found that the VCF Cloud account didn't have that property set, but it found that the associated NSX account did have that particular property set, which is obviously where that mismatch is coming from. And then the script goes and updates that VCF property to match. So it changes everything to obviously be the same, which should allow us to do that VCF 9 upgrade. Now, the last thing we want to do is exit out of the database. So let's imagine that you run the simulate VCF accounts policy mode. Everything looks okay. You then repeat the steps, and the article talks about that. So in step 9, if you're satisfied everything worked correctly with that simulated run, repeat these steps, but obviously use the update VCF Cloud Accounts policy mode.sql script. Then once you've done that, you want to exit the database, so /q. You'll drop out of that sort of mode, edit mode, and you'll be back into automation. You'll then be able to run the commands. I won't run them again, but you'll be able to run these API calls, and you'll be able to verify now that when you run the Cloud Account Properties API call, that the endpoint properties will then have a section or a property now use policy.api, and it will be set to true. So both the Cloud Account and the NSX account will have those properties set, which should hopefully resolve this error when trying to upgrade to VCF Automation 9.
Okay, all the validation passed, and a couple of things just so I'm always upfront about things. You can have a look at the last updated time. It's clearly different to the last screen. I gave it a couple of days, took a weekend break, and got some help with the automation side of things. The other thing I really wanted to nut out here is under automation validations, you saw a couple of failures around the IP pool check, and that was due to the fact that the networks that I was putting in was not on the range, the side, or whatever I was trying to put in, never validated because I was always putting in a network range that was not in the same network as the VIP that's assigned to, or that I had assigned to the node or the IP address. Now, to get that validation successful, I created an IP range within the same network CIDR that the node is actually going to be deployed onto. So in my case, if I go back, scroll down, as you can see here, primary VIP is 10.100.0.199. I tried a bunch of different networks, and finally I landed on exactly 16 usable IP addresses in the same range. Make sure they're not used, and then your validation will be successful. I did go backwards and forwards on this a couple of times, so I just wanted to save you some time on that. I'll hit next, that's all good. I'll hit next, and I'll actually quickly verify. So we've got everything that we've selected. We know networks, that's the most important part, and then the other should be under primary VIP, IP address, and then internal to cluster aside. It doesn't matter if it's what you select there, and that was auto-generated for me. Alright, then we'll have a quick look at topology, automation, VCF primary node, and since I'm only downloading one, it makes sense to me. I'll hit submit on that, and away it goes. Hopefully that all goes successful. We'll come back after it's done, or if it hits any issues, and we'll figure out together. As we can see here, successfully upgraded, deployed, and onboarded into VCF Operations. It took 1 hour and 23 minutes, which is not too bad if you consider how big the application is or appliance is and how much it's doing. What's left is the identity broker, so we'll get onto deploying that in the next section, and as you can see here, everything's in compliance. Once all this is good to go or done, we'll move on to the platform, SDDC Manager, vCenter, ESX, and NSX. All right, catch you in the next section.